Immigration reform. It's not typically an issue you think of when you think of food regulation, but to the produce industry, the law surrounding immigration is very much a food issue. That's because, based on USDA data, roughly half of all hired crop hands are in this country illegally. There are an estimated 11 million undocumented immigrants living in the U.S., but believe it or not, these workers are becoming more difficult to find for the produce industry. Of all the migrant workers, 7 out of 10 are from Mexico. And studies indicate that more of these folks are staying home to work on Mexico's farms, as the Mexican economy and that country's middle class is strengthening. It's gotten so difficult for farmers in California to find enough workers that they've even switched to less labor-intensive crops, switching from tomatoes and peaches, for example, to tree nuts. In late January, a group of 9 senators, including several prominent Republicans and Democrats, unveiled a blueprint that would grant legal status to illegal immigrants in the U.S. But how far will this proposal go? And what's likely to happen down the road in relation to immigration reform? Let's bring back Tom O'Brien, the Washington, D.C. representative for the Produce Marketing Association, to break this down. Tom, when people think about migrant workers, they typically picture someone who's willing to work for less money under more difficult conditions and maybe not pay taxes. Why should U.S. citizens support the idea of allowing migrant workers to stay in the country and to do these jobs?
Well, I think if there's a concern about exploitation, that's exactly what the produce industry is trying to avoid by advocating for immigration reform. Let's have workers who are documented, who take them out of the shadows, and have a workable guest worker program with safeguards in place to assure that wage levels are appropriate.
It seems that immigration has been a topic of discussion for several years now, but not a whole lot has changed. What is the hang-up? Why is this not moving forward?
Well, it's an issue people on both sides feel very passionately about. It's also been used as a political issue. What's important about what's happened lately is you see bipartisan efforts to address the issue, to pair both immigration reform with border security issues to try to get something achieved for both sides of the aisle.
Okay. In a nutshell, there's this plan that's been put out there. In a nutshell, the plan by Senators Schumer, McCain, Durbin, Graham, Menendez, Rubio, Bennett, and Flake. What would it do?
It would address immigration reform in a comprehensive way. It's not an agriculture-specific issue. It would provide a tough but fair path towards citizenship for those who are here now and without documentation. It also provides a workable guest worker program because it recognizes the unique needs of agriculture.
Okay. Who's opposed to the plan and why?
Well, I think I should say right now it's a set of principles. It's just been released. There are some who have been criticized any effort at immigration reform, but this effort is so new and stretches across both sides of the aisle that we don't yet know its prospects. Again, what's really different about this year is the bipartisan effort that's going on and not just sort of one side or the other at trying to address immigration reform.
Well, in this example, you've got some prominent Republicans and Democrats, well known in their party, who are both supporting this one plan. Do you think it's got a chance?
I think that means it definitely has a chance. And I think it's an interesting thing about immigration reform. For all the passion felt by sides, it does create some interesting alliances. For years, the produce industry has been advocating for immigration reform, particularly through the vehicle called Ag Jobs, which is an agriculture-specific proposal. That's an effort we've done with the United Farm Workers and other farm worker advocates, where we've joined together to say, let's address the issue of undocumented workers and make sure that they're documented and we have a stable workforce.
What's the timing like on this? What are we likely to see next?
It is really hard to say. There's a lot of optimism that this could happen fast. That's not a word often associated with congressional action these days, but this could be the exception to that rule.
Okay. That's it. That's all the time we have on this episode of Knife and Fork. Thanks to Tom O'Brien for appearing twice. Look for another food regulatory personality to come into our studio soon.